some of you, I've got a lot of you muted, so feel free to unmute yourself if you want to ask a question or anything. We're going to talk about ProDev and awarding credits and kind of who kind of does what. You know, what does the PD department typically do and what does the HR department do, and kind of walk through the process of, you know, awarding credits. And I just want to say I'm kind of going to go through what would typically look like, but know that each district is unique and kind of has their own process. But ultimately, I just want to make sure you understand the process and that you're sure it's very clear who's doing what, so there's no miscommunication or anything. So that's kind of what I want to talk about and go over today. And as always, you have my permission to ask questions, and if I'm not making sense, please feel free to either use a chat or to ask a question, unmute yourself, and I'll do my best to try to explain, because, you know, it makes sense in my mind, but that doesn't mean it makes sense in everybody else's. And I know I'm a fast talker, and I go pretty quick, so I don't want to miss anybody. So please, you'll never hurt my feelings. So thank you. All right, so let's get going. Okay, all right, Melody, I got to chat. Someone having a question, just a second. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, sorry. Someone's chatting and I'm trying to help her. Oops. Okay, so let's get rolling here. I can get my mouse now to work. Come on. Okay, so if you've been on some of the other webinars, you might have seen this little graphic. I made it a couple weeks ago about kind of the professional development process. So I thought we'd start by reviewing this, and we'll kind of move forward into talking about awarding credit, because that's kind of what our big, kind of what I want to focus on. But as you know, PD always starts with the course request, and then you got your participants. They come and they sign up for the course, and, you know, they sign in. That's a really important step, so we have a record that they're there. After the course is done, the instructor verifies the attendance, and sometime along, you know, from courses being over and before the credit is awarded, the participants are going to go and do their evaluation. So that's kind of the process of the ProDev cycle. You know, in the last step, awarding credits can't happen until all those other steps have taken place. So this is what our focus of the webinar today is, that last step, that last piece in the puzzle. So completing a course. Professional development is typically responsible for the closing out of a course, while HR is typically responsible for awarding credit for the course into whatever fiscal system they're using. And so I've made this little graphic, PD and HR, and you'll see it throughout the slides, kind of typically when I'm talking about stuff, who would typically be responsible for a task when it comes to completing a course and awarding the credit. So like I said, this is what happens after everything else has happened. The course is done, the evaluation should be done, the attendance has been verified by the instructor. And then it comes to PD, and they kind of take it from there and then hand it off to HR once they're done. Okay. So when it comes time to complete a course, this is kind of the process. First off, you're going to re-verify or double check the attendance. The WAC asks us to do that. It's part of the WAC codes. You know, that we're double checking what the instructors say, you know, went on. We're looking at that sign-in sheet. And then after that, the status of the course gets changed to complete. Then we go and we post the course in the PD system, which puts it on the transcript. And then you export and upload the credits to another system, you know, if that's what you're doing. You know, some of you have ERM and it just kind of comes across, so you don't really necessarily do this step. And then finally, you need to change that status to posted when it's all done. We're going to talk about who does what. So typically, this double checking of attendance would fall under the responsibility of the kind of the teaching and learning professional development team. So when they get that sign-in sheet back from the instructor, they need to verify that the instructor was accurate in awarding, that attendance, doing the attendance. Sorry, I can't talk today. And I know you guys know how to do this, but we'll briefly kind of talk on the steps. You're going to go to the course attendance email tab. You're going to find that course. You're going to click the pencil, open the grading screen, and you're going to do a visual scan. You're going to take that sign-in sheet, and you're going to look and just double check the instructor's work. You're going to see if anybody left early. You're going to see how many, make sure everybody signed in. Everybody that signed in on that sign-in sheet is listed on the credit sheet or credit screen. And, if there's any mistakes, you're going to correct them. And that's kind of the process we want you to follow. Sometimes some districts, the instructors aren't doing the verification and it falls solely on the PD department. So you might be the actual check and the double check at the same time. But it's real important that we're verifying that our records are accurate, that our sign-in sheets match what we're putting into the system, because that's kind of our sign-in sheets are our proof, if we were ever to get audited down the line. Okay. And this is what that screen looks like, just a refresher. You open the pencil and here's a screen, a very small version, and just to recap, you click this pencil. If Katie Becker actually didn't earn all 6 hours, maybe she left an hour early, I could edit it and I could turn it, change it to 5 and save it. We teach our instructors, to click the mark all complete, edit, and press the grading complete. But if it's come to you and the status started grades in, you don't need to press either one of these buttons if this looks right. You're just coming in here and you're double checking. And hopefully you're not having to make any changes because your instructors are awesome and they're doing their job and they're getting it done. So after you've double checked, you would click return and it would take you back to the other screen where all your courses are listed. So I've finished verifying my attendance, okay? So the next step is I need to change the status to complete. And hopefully you all know how to do that as well. You're going to go to that management tab, PD manager, go to course utilities. You're going to find that course and you pick any session, doesn't matter which session, you just have to pick one. And you're going to change the status of that course to complete. A couple things happen when that process is done, when you press save. First off, the status gets changed to complete. And secondly, an email goes to whomever is set up in your system as the registrar, typically someone in HR. And that's the person who's kind of in charge of actually uploading credits. We also ask, if PD is not going to do the next step, that you would send a copy of those sign-in sheets to whomever is. So we typically say to HR. But note that PD is responsible for maintaining the original sign-in sheets and all other course documentation, which is required by OSPI. So make sure, that you're keeping those original sign-in sheets, whether you're scanning them and uploading them to the system or you have a file cabinet. You have to, keep that documentation so that you can prove that these credits are correct. I hope I'm making sense and I'm not talking too fast. Okay. And this is how you change, this is what it looks like when you go and you change that status to complete. This is the screen, you select the status. Well, actually it defaults to this one and you find your course. And here's where you go in and you put your new status. You can always see what the current status was up here, your new status, and you save it. Okay. Now this isn't true with everybody, but oftentimes this is where PD hands off the data to HR so that, HR is kind of in charge of the posting. And so this may not be true in your district. Maybe PD still does this next step, but this is what typically most districts do. So after you've changed this to complete, it's time to post the course. And posting the course does a couple things. It's going to add those credits to the individual's transcript and then add the data to a report that can be uploaded into another system. So SCAR would log into the PD portal, and they would go to the post credits menu. They're going to find that course, and then initially they're going to be brought on a screen that shows them all the details of the course. On a side note, you don't want to do this step until after the evaluation due date has passed, because otherwise, if people still have an opportunity to do the evaluation, you would need to come back and redo this step, and that's where it gets messy. So as a rule of thumb, you wait until, so if you're a 15-day evaluation window, you wouldn't do this step until after that 15 days has passed, or if you're a 30-day, you wait for 30 days. So just remember, that's really important that you're not rushing this step, because people might get missed and they won't get their credit awarded. Okay. And there's the post screen. This is where you select your course and everything. And this is what it looks like. And you can see right away, you know, the user ID, the name, the type of credits, and all this information shows up on the screen. And we teach you that this is kind of a three-step process. So the very first thing you do is you always click that process hold button. And it's really important you do this, because when you click this button, the system runs a check, and they're double checking your records. And they're looking to make sure those three things the state requires are true. And so it's going to look to make sure that the clock hours are greater than or equal to or greater than 3. You know, anybody who has less than 3 credits is going to be placed on hold. The second thing it's going to look at is it's going to look at the grade. Has this course been marked complete? Is this person a no-show? Is this person verified? So it's going to look to make sure that however we set it up, C for complete, if that's your system, or V for verified, is true. If not, the record will be placed on hold. And then the third thing it looks at is to see, have they completed the evaluation or not? And if they haven't, the record's put on hold. So any records that don't meet all 3 of those conditions will be placed on hold, and it'll be marked with a numerical number under the hold reason column. And that's a way for you to quickly see why someone is placed on hold rather than having to look at all 3 of the columns. So if it has a 1, it's going to tell you that they didn't earn enough credits. If it's a 2, they weren't marked complete. If it's a 3, they didn't do their evaluation. And on a side note, if you're one of my districts that also requires payment, if there's a 4, they didn't pay for the course. So some districts require payment in order for the course to be transcribed. So you would technically have 4 conditions that need to be true. So that's step 1, press process hold. If you skip this step and you go directly to step 2, you're potentially going to be awarding credits to people who don't meet the 3 conditions. Okay. So step 2 is posting that course. There's a button, you click it, and it does a couple things. 1, it populates the posted field as true in the database if the record's not on hold. 2, it puts in the date that you posted it, which can be helpful later. And 3, it adds all those posted records into an export information report. There's a couple different ones in your system, and based on what fiscal systems you use would be which report you would pick. So like if you're a Westpac Skyward user, you would pull the Westpac credit load to load into Skyward. And then 4, the other thing that happens when you click this post course button is anybody that's posted, that gets marked posted, this course will now show up on their clock hour transcript. That's, of course, if it's a clock hour class. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, then step 3. This is optional, but I like it, is you click the posting list button. And it just makes you, all that happens is it creates a PDF report of that shows the record at that moment in time of who and what was posted. I like to take that report and I like to attach it to my attendance roster, and it's a real quick visual of who is getting credit. And just note that this now has become your permanent record. And no changes to this data should ever happen unless there is direct communication between the PD department and HR, because there's a big impact with this data. You know, it impacts your S275 report. You know, we can't have HR going and uploading all these credits and then PD making changes and not communicating with HR, because then if PD goes and makes changes and stuff and then the participant logs in and they pull their transcript and it shows one thing but HR has something else, that's going to be a big problem. I had a quick question, let me read it, and then I'll continue. Okay, someone asked, you know, do they need to change the attendance mark, you know, either from verified to incomplete if the attendance participant attended fewer than 3 hours? No, you don't need to do that because of condition 1 and the process hold does the work for you. So it's looking at the numbers. So you don't have to worry about that. Your process, you're doing things right. Because you verified that, you know, that they came for 1 hour instead of 3. But the system knows that 1 hour isn't enough to get awarded credit. So hopefully that answers your question okay? Okay. All right. Some of my HR districts also choose to keep a copy of this posting list just so they kind of know what's going on. That might not be necessary. I have other districts, you know, where their PD and HR work really closely together, and PD keeps all the documents. HR just knows where to get them if they need them. But it's, like I said, I think the most important thing of all is that don't make changes unless everybody's in the loop, because you got to make sure that if you do make a change, it happens in both systems, especially if, you know, you're using Westpac or Business Plus or any other outside fiscal system. Okay. After you've done all that, you know, just a reminder, and you guys know this, for state audit purposes, you got to maintain the documentation of those completed hours in that employee's personnel file. And the easiest way to do that is by printing the clock hour transcript report and then adding it to that individual's file. And it's easy to do. You go to, you know, Management PD Manager Reports, and you select the transcript from your drop-down menu. You always all call it something different. Some people, it's got your district's name in it. Some says official transcript, whatever. Just know I put transcript, but your title might be different on your site. And, you know that you can you can set the parameters on your printing of your transcript. So if you only want to select a specific date or whatever, you can do that. So on the next slide, a little screenshot of where you go. And maybe I just want to print everything up until October 1st. I could do that. Or I could put, you know, from a whole year span or whatever I want. Or I could find the individual employee and print one as well. On your site, you'll also, there's an ABC, because if you have a lot of people, we broke it up so you can do it in batches, so the report moves a little quicker. But on my release site, it's not there because we don't have that much data. So that's why that screen looks a little different. Okay. So after you have posted the credits to the system, that data is going to be put into a report. And so as a sidebar, sometimes this is where HR steps in and PD handles everything up until here. So that's why I said that the roles might be a little different in your district, but this is how the data now gets to your to any other system. So after the course has been posted and HR is happy with the documentation, everything's correct, we know that we're done, we're not going to, all the changes that need to be made are done. You use the export information tool to get that file so that you can load it into your system, like Business Plus, Westpac, whatever you're using. You access that file by going to the Export Information tool under the System Manager, PD Manager tab. It's also under but yeah, System Manager tab or the PD Manager tab, sorry, it's in 2 places. And then you're going to find your file and open it. And then you're going to follow the specific directions for your fiscal system to upload those credits. I know the steps by heart for Skyward Westpac. I'm not as familiar with other systems. But if you need some help with that, you can reach out to the support team and we'll do our best. This is what that screen looks like. And there's a lot of reports. So I like to filter just to find a report quickly. So you could type in credit, and these are all the different credit loads that are on most sites. You know, there's Business Plus, there's Westpac, Westpac Fiscal. So you can come in here and you can find the report that you're using, and you click on the magnifying glass and it opens the report. And then you're going to go through your steps of uploading it into your system. I know, like with Westpac, you got to do a little prep work first. You've got to remove like the names and make sure everybody has a name key, exchange ID, and follow the steps and then upload it in. After you've uploaded the course, the last and final step in the system is to go back and to change that status to posted. So you're going to go to the course utilities, you're going to find your course, and find the status, and a couple things happen when the course gets changed to posted. All the data gets removed from that credit export report so that you don't accidentally upload a course again. It also tells the system that you're done with the data, and the clock hour report is now available. Now, I don't know why. You can get the transcript before you can get the clock hour report, but at this time, that's how it's set up. But basically, posted lets us know that everything's done, that course is done, and we don't want to touch it anymore. That's kind of the process. Now, I've kind of rambled, and I apologize. This is, you know, what it looks like if you need to change the status to posted, just like changing it to complete. You're going to pick the course, pick the session, and put in the new status and save your work. Okay, so I just want to retouch this issue. This is the biggest one. If you need to make a change, you've got to have both parties, you know, in on it. You know, you can't just go making changes to anybody's record after a course is posted without including HR. Because like I said, if a change is made in PD, your fiscal system also needs to be updated, and a new transcript would need to be printed and put into that employee's file. People forget that, you know, we got data that's, you know, we got 2 systems that are not necessarily connected, and so you have to communicate. You know, if you're using ERM, it's a little different because it would automatically get updated in the ERM system. But anybody else, you have to communicate with PD and HR, because you could potentially be causing a big problem for HR when the, you know, with the S275 report. Okay. So ultimately, it's up to you guys to decide who is responsible for each task. Like in my little PowerPoint, I kind of put who typically does stuff, you know, whether it's PD versus HR. But the biggest thing is, you know, outlining and clearly defining who is going to do each of those steps. You know, this is going to be a PD task, this is going to be an HR task, so that there's no disconnect and that, you know, records don't get lost and people are getting those credits, because, you know, it's a big deal. Teachers depend on those for, you know, multiple reasons, you know, to keep their certificate renewed and whatnot, and also, you know, their pay, you know, where they fall on the pay scale. So if anything, you know, if you don't have a clearly defined process, you know, make sure you do. And if you need help defining that, we can help we can help you develop a business practice, so to speak, and help you write up all the steps so everybody's on the same page of who's going to be doing what when it comes to awarding credits and closing up courses in the PD system. Okay, I hope I didn't totally confuse you. If you guys have questions, would you like to kind of go over, like I could bring the graphic of the 5 steps back up, what would be helpful for you? And just let me know. Okay. Do you mean the export or, oh, the name of the posting list report, Linda, I think is what you mean? Hold on here. Let me go to my slide. I didn't put an example. Let me find it. Posting list report. Is that the one you're talking about? It's a nice report that shows all the records. I can go grab one real quick from a site and show you what it looks like. Or hold on, I'll do that maybe. Okay, let me go grab one from a site. Give me just a second, and I'll show you a good example. Sorry, I'm kind of pokey here. I didn't think to put one in my presentation, so I apologize for that. I just have to find one that's completed. Okay, here's one. All right, let me share another file. Things are a little slower in the WebEx, so I apologize. Okay, it's loading. Hopefully you can see that. So here is an example of that posting list. And so right here, this is a class that was posted on Vancouver's site. And you can see right away, these are all the participants and who's getting credit and who's not. And I actually really like what this district does. After they post this course, they attach this to the top of their sign-in sheet. And they actually have a stamp that they stamp, and they have a couple checklists from this to help them with their process. So they've, let them know that they posted the course, and then they initial off when it's uploaded into their fiscal system, and they've got a couple other steps they do. And then they initial off when they've actually changed that course back to posted, so they know where they are. And then this gets filed away. And anytime there's a question, someone disputes anything, they can pull. They pull it all out at once. They pull this, it's on top of the sign-in sheet. They can go and look through the sign-in sheet, answer questions, but they can also tell anybody right away who got credit for this course. So hopefully that helps answer your question. The hard part is you got to print the course. This list only shows up before the class is changed to posted. But it's not a bad idea if maybe we could add this to another menu somewhere in the system so you could get it after the fact, and I can ask if that would be possible. But yes, right now the status has to be complete in order to pull this report. Other questions people have when it comes to this process. And like I said, if you want help developing like a business process or steps, we would more than happy to help you. I've got some of my districts that have written them up and are willing to let us share them with other districts of how their process works and how they've written it out and all the steps. So if that interests you, shoot me an email and I'll share that information with you. It's never a bad idea to have things clearly written out, who's doing what, especially if, there's staffing changes and people come and go. You don't want anything to get lost in the way. Yes, Lynn, we'll make sure that gets added for you. We don't like data to get lost in the way. Credits are a big deal, and we need to be accurate, and we need to be thoughtful when we're doing this process. It's not just something we take lightly. Yes. I love it. Someone says that they scan all this and keep it electronic, and that's great. And I forgot to say that. So yes, the nice thing is when you pull open this report, like Linda, it's opens as a PDF, and you could just save it, and you've got an electronic copy. You don't actually have to print it. I have one district that scans all of their attendance sheets, and then they keep this electronic copy. And after the course is completed and everything, they go back to the course request and they attach this to the materials page, and it lives with that course forever. So if they ever need to go back, 3-4 years from now, they can go find that course, open the course request, and all those documents associated with the course live with that class. So that's, and that's written into some of, I know one of my districts, that's part of their business process, to keep the electronic copy attached to the course under the course materials tab of the course request. Anybody else have questions, thoughts, just things they'd like to share? You can unmute yourself or type a chat and I'll read your question.